Hi.
We're all Zoom hopping today.
What's going on?
Hi, Jerome. Hi, Tia.
Hello, strangers. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like, whoa, what is all this? But it's our proposed agenda.
I know it looks like a lot. Some of them have like thoughts underneath to it. Will get cleaned up for the public version.
Izzy, I want to apologize for breaking into your meeting on that Wednesday with Marcus Henry.
Wait, which meeting was that? Was that, oh, yes, that was the CARES Act one. That was funny. No, it was.
I had just gotten that link about 10 minutes before. I've been trying to get a hold of Marcus Henry, and all of a sudden, there he was.
Yep. Making his presentation.
I didn't know that much about those task forces. I guess you're trying to come up with recommendations by next week or something like that.
Yeah, it's not like it's going to be like any kind of set in stone budget or anything like that. It's really just priorities that can be used by those making the final spending decisions on how we feel those funds should be prioritized. And so the committee that I chair is focused on vulnerable communities, as you I'm sure gathered, and just how we want to make sure, based on stakeholder input, those funds are hopefully spent. So the really awesome ideas have like come into it, I think, and even the advocates are happy. So hopefully we'll be able to follow through on it.
Do you see any connection there with this other work with the schools in Wilmington and so forth, with the Reading Consortium, or is this a different?
Yeah, well, I think there's overlap in the sense that like there are resources out there, and how do we make sure they don't get co-opted away from uses that are really going to help our highest needs communities, right? I mean, I think it's just a fundamental equity project. So I think there's definitely overlap there, because I know we're talking a little bit about, making sure we have an eye on that type of funding from our perspective too. So definitely they touch.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's 10. Whoa, where did those 3 minutes go? It's 10:33. Sorry, just sitting here. Okay. I can't see the whole agenda, but obviously I think, would you mind scrolling it down or maybe make it smaller?
Yeah. So, like the whole agenda. Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to say, I'm like, what are we doing after this? So let's just.
Can you read that? Is that okay?
I can. Do we just have 3 items on the agenda today? Okay. So,
wait, are you not seeing? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can you see down 4 and 5?
Oh.
Scroll down a bit more. Just scroll, Haley, and then you won't. It's okay. So, there you go.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, perfect.
Oh, so that's weird. I can't see the top now.
Now I can't either. I could a second ago. I had everything.
Oh, wait.
You can see it.
There. Stop.
All right. Now we kind of get it.
Okay.
All right. So we just wanted to make sure as we start this morning that we have a sense of all the things that we are touching on. Hi, everybody who's here. So we have sort of the 5 points for our meeting this morning. I think had a lot of conversations in between this week and last week. I don't know if that's going to make this morning's meeting a quicker one or a longer one, but let's find out. So we're going to review where we are with the meeting agenda for August, and then we will touch upon the subsequent consortium meeting dates, of course, get any needed updates or requests for support from our work groups. If we have any research reports, can talk about that, and then we will have some time for public comments. So let's go ahead and take, I want to give everyone an opportunity to just take a look at the meeting agenda for August 13th again. We refined this a little bit last week. Haley, do you want to just kind of walk us through it, just very high level?
Sure. So the first thing we have on there is roll call, and that's just making sure taking everyone's present. And then we would review the meeting minutes from the May meeting, motion to approve those, and then do a roll call for that motion. And then we would do a quick timeline update. So just this is our August meeting, and then our vision is to meet in October and then meet in December. And then this can sort of adjusting the redistricting timeline. I think Tizzy or Eugene and Namdi can decide how much or little you want to say about that. But just make it probably known that it has to be adjusted because of COVID and everything going on. And then we would hear work group updates from each of the work groups. So sort of what their plan is, how their most recent work group meeting went. And the goal is to send out sort of work group updates beforehand so people could read and know. So the work group updates wouldn't take as long, but they probably still will because that's just what happens. And I think that's okay. And then Jim Simmons from the Office of Equity and Inclusion innovation. Dang it, I have to fix that. It's UD has an Office of Equity and Inclusion. That's why I always write that to change that. Equity and innovation. He confirmed that he would be willing to speak about his role and position, transparency around the CARES Act funding. And this was just sort of based on our conversation last week, but also my suggestion of that you could sort of give a high level understanding of that there are the gear funds and then the K-12 funds, just what those are, high level, how they're being allocated and used, and then maybe more specifically, a bigger equity issue is there's not really guidance about how districts spend the CARES Act funding at the school level. So maybe a little bit understanding of how districts are making those decisions if he has that information. And then we talked about having a sort of facilitated conversation about equity and anti-racism. And I reached out to Monique Martin at DOE, and I haven't heard back yet. Tizzy, I'm pretty sure I copied you on that email.
Yes, you did.
Just asking her to provide a facilitated conversation about those topics and how we might focus our work and around that understanding of equity and anti-racism. And then we would have public comment.
Okay.
That was a lot. Does anyone have thoughts or feedback?
Haley, I put a note in the chat too, but
Oh.
I can reach out or follow up with Monique if you want. I was actually just working with her this week and will be working with her again in the near future.
Okay, that would be awesome.
And I'm pretty sure she would be open to it because I did mention some things about our consortium to her.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure she's just caught in the cyclone of school reopening like the rest of us. But
Absolutely.
I've heard her and other folks who are in that newly restructured office, all of whom seem like they might be good resources. In fact, I was talking to Jim just yesterday, and he was talking about how these sort of little small things were happening through the department, and now this office is kind of bringing those together. So maybe in a way, this is almost like part 2 of that office. It's almost like an introduction to this Office of Equity and Innovation in a sense, if she agrees to do that. So does anyone have oh, sorry, go ahead, Haley.
Oh, I was just going to say, Fran asked in the group chat if Jim Simmons oversees the CARES Act funding, or if, I guess I don't know.
I think that's exactly why we want him to come speak, is to kind of clear up that structural stuff. Like, I don't think it's not his responsibility. I think he would be more speaking for the DOE, or maybe the secretary would even chime in there.
Okay.
My understanding previously was that all the federal stuff was sort of in Chuck Longfellow's hands. And as I think a lot of us know, Chuck has moved into the CFO position at Christina School District. which is great for Christina, but hard when you relied on him to go, to go to him for federal questions at the department. So I'm not sure if that position has been filled or who's handling that right now. I'm sure Jim can inform us of that at that time. And then, of course, that CARES Act funding, there's only a portion of it is at the DOE level, but my hope would be that he would speak to not just the DOE portion, but help make sure that we as a consortium and any of the public listening understand that there's also a portion that resides with the governor, a portion that resides with every single LEA. And so that folks have a better understanding of how to track and advocate around that. So we're asking him to kind of do us a solid in helping paint that picture when it's not all on him, besides being the equity lead. Does that help? Is Fran here?
Yep.
I hope that helped. I hope that was what he was
I had it. Sorry, I had a mute. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I mean, I feel personally pretty satisfied. I know it's very packed. I mean, those 3 20-minute items are pretty hefty, and that does make me nervous. But I think aspirational is a good way to look at an agenda. But I think aspirationally, I think it looks. I'm satisfied and happy with it. So Kelly, I think you wanted to say something.
It is a huge agenda, and I'm just trying to think of ways to keep the group engaged. Because it's a lot of sit and get, and I've found as I've been sitting in more meetings, it's been helpful to have. Not that I know how to do a break. I don't know if breakout groups don't necessarily fit here, but maybe in our next meetings we can kind of think of some ways to break out, like when we're reviewing the I'm just thinking long term, when we're like reviewing the work group's plans.
Well, I think that is relevant for this one because we don't want people to tune out, and that is so easy to do in Zoom. I think it's worth thinking through how to keep people engaged. I think having a very substantive agenda is appropriate in a way, given that we have, we're meeting for 2 hours every 2 months. So
I agree.
we gotta do what we gotta do. But like, how do we make sure that that substantive stuff isn't just super dry? Although I think these are all really interesting topics. I think that how do we make sure that it's not super dry or easy to check out of is a fair question. I don't know the answer to that on each of those areas. I mean, I guess we'd be kind of maybe looking to our work groups a little bit if they have any thoughts, or is there a way to make the work group updates more engaging? I think I feel like people are going to have a lot of questions for Jim.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's and I think the question for that maybe not necessarily will it be engaging, but how do we make it manageable so it doesn't run amok? And honestly, the Monique conversation is kind of the same thing. It's like, I think people, will be interested. It's like, how do we capture and manage interest so that it is productive? And does anyone have any ideas about what that looks like to make a 20 to 30 minute? I know we
go noodle between each one of them.
What'd you say?
Do go noodle between each one.
What is it?
That's a program my kids' school used to.
Oh, I was like, what? They always have such weird names.
I know.
I think if we do use the breakouts, that it would be good to have guided questions for the conversation, because in the meeting I was in yesterday, when our group was posed the question, it kind of sat there with crickets. But I think it was helpful when then Haley broke it down into like 3 other questions that guided more of the overarching question, and then people started to engage. So if we do go that route, I think that will be helpful.
I agree. I wonder, have we ever done it where maybe you sort of do a small breakout at the beginning of a segment to sort of get people primed to engage with it, versus like sit and get for 20 minutes and then go talk about it and then report, or whatever it would be. Do you know what I mean? I guess what I'm saying is, would it make sense, like with the work group updates, to have people go for a couple of minutes and talk in a small group about whatever the slide deck is or whatever, to look at it and then come back with a question, or I don't know, like sort of a small digestion timing period before the sit and get part, so that they can be more responsive, or if they're going to check out, they will have engaged maybe in a small group and posed a question. I'm just trying to think of a way to do it differently than we have done that ensures some level of engagement with the material that we can work with, rather than here's 20 minutes of a block of text.
That's what I also think. I think it was the last meeting for this, but whenever suggesting that the work group updates be sent ahead of time, or like a little briefing that we could already read, and then maybe have 2 guiding questions that everyone thinks about, like, you know, what were your initial thoughts on it, or what is something you want to know more about after reading it. So then when we come together, we can have those discussion points, and then we could even break out into the different sessions, maybe with a mix of different backgrounds or perspectives that, like, you guys might want to do the groupings, or based on a certain way, or not, or just random.
Yeah. And maybe just build that in. I mean, just 2 minutes to like think about it, because we know that we all come to these meetings, and even though we had homework that I'm sure every single person did, you might need that moment to catch up and get your brain back, because you just came from another Zoom or whatever is going on, and maybe you didn't look at the slides. And then I just feel like maybe if you open up that thing with like, okay, here's the little slides you were supposed to have read, people can kind of orient themselves to the conversation.
Right.
There is a feature on Zoom where you can do little feedback surveys too. If you want.
We never use that.
We could do that. We could think of some questions, and before each work group presents or something, say, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I love that.
That would be a good way to do it too. Because I worry if we do a breakout room for each one, getting into the breakout room, I mean, granted, I'm the one who said breakout room, getting into it, getting started,
right,
out of it,
time
will add a lot of time, and that would probably give Monique 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, as we keep creating that agendas, like, let's think this through, and I'm really
right. Instead of a breakout, maybe, you know, a prompt where you have a couple of minutes to either complete that survey function or
type it in the chat,
which it seems to because then there is that accountability there, because everyone's watching who responds. Who's not paying attention, you know, it does put that pressure.
The group,
on a little bit.
the group presenting could be asked to come up with 2-3 questions, or somebody else could come up with 2-3 questions, just to get feedback on, you know, how people are reacting to what's being said.
Yeah, rather than walk through a slide deck.
right? And then Fran suggested giving a 5-minute break just to stretch halfway through as well, which
I like it.
could do.
When would that fit?
You also,
Maybe
in addition to
before.
the Zoom polls, you also have like synchronous ways to have everybody respond to prompts. So if you're soliciting feedback or questions, people could be simultaneously, like through Jamboard or Minuit, things like that, where you throw out a question or ask people, you know, please take a minute and insert your concerns or questions, and then pull those out as they come through. So there's lots of different ways, but it all depends on where you're disseminating information or whether you're soliciting feedback on things.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, I think we should be open to using some of these tools that our educators and students are going to be very immersed in coming months.
And I even think when we're getting that feedback in October on those plans, that's a good way as well, like Fran was mentioning, to use some of them too. So let's just keep that in our heads.
I think the important thing is not to do things, techie things for techie's sake, but rather, you know, what's your goal? And if your goal is to try and get broad feedback, Zoom does not lend it to anything other than 2 or 3 people saying things. Whereas like things like Jamboard or Whiteboard or things like that all allow everybody to be inputting simultaneously, so that, you know, you're not privileging 2 or 3 people over the whole group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
So at this point, no strong objections to any content of the meeting agenda, really just sort of finessing the managing of it to make sure people are engaged and that we keep it flowing.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, if I don't see any hands or hear any voices, we're gonna move on. All right, cool, great. All right.
What, just real quickly, what if
Yes.
Monique doesn't come through? You haven't heard back from her, right?
I think that's a good question. I guess we cross that bridge when we come to it. I think we'll let Tika and Haley follow up, because I don't necessarily have another alternative that I think might fit as well in mind. But perhaps someone wants to send us some suggestions. I know we're a public meeting now, so so maybe I think let's give ourselves till next week's meeting to see if she comes through, and if not, Plan B. We'll also be thinking about Plan B in that time as well.
I think by next week's meeting, we could probably have an answer to that
Yeah.
question.
Good point. Cool. All right. If nothing else, we can always go back if anyone thinks of something as we go on. So October and December meeting dates. So we typically meet in October and December, and on the second Thursday of the month. It's Friday. And so that would currently put us at October 8th and December 10th. So wanted to touch on that. I know I've been attending some of our meetings that we had this week for our working groups, and some planning with co-chairs as well. And I know, I would say at least in one instance, October 8th looks like it might be pushing it a bit if we're really looking at October as a moment for the first crack at the deliverables. So we're asking our working groups to come in October with like pretty substantive and well-formed deliverable proposals for feedback that we can then confirm in December. So October 8th feels like we could
Really
maybe
early.
push that back. I'm just putting that out there, and if anyone wants to push back on that, let me know. But that we would work with there, and then think about how long do we then need until our December meeting to finesse that based on any feedback that we get. So what do folks think? Haley, do you have I feel like you might have a specific proposal about an alternative for October 8th, maybe based on some of the fund and governance work group conversations. No?
I'm listening. Oh, go ahead, Haley. Jump in as the educator, but go ahead.
Oh no, you probably have more substantive things to say. No, I agree. October 8th is probably early. The third or fourth Thursday or whatever day of the week would probably be better, just to give us more time if our goal is October.
Okay.
But
and I know those Thursdays we used to meet, I want to say used to be the same day as the Kaumba board meetings. So members had an issue. But even just thinking through the educator work group timeline, we want to at least meet once in October, hopefully before, this is hope, I'm talking with the chairs later today some more, meet at least time in October to really go over where we are. And I mean, we have a lot of stuff already written and done, so I'm just thinking like the groups who might need some more time pushing it, maybe.
Yeah. Well, here's a fun fact I just discovered looking at my calendar. October has 5 Thursdays for us to pick from. So
I was just looking at that too. I think that's why the 8th is so early, because the first Thursday, because it would have been probably closer to the 15th, which seems a little more doable.
So then that leaves up the 22nd and the 29th. I think, yeah, I mean, 22nd feels comfortable. 29th seems fine. I think either of them. I mean, maybe we want to poll people. I don't know that people have plans in place at that time. But I mean, I think doing the 4th or 5th Thursday, if we give people a lead time, would be acceptable, especially if it means that that gives us an extra 2 to 3 weeks to really deliver, you know, really our substance for the year. So
that also gives the work groups time to get it together so they can share it quick sooner as well if we push.
Yeah. So then that, of course, you know, I guess I would kind of look to you all, you know, to the staff, thinking in terms of the work that it then takes to process. So say we meet on the 22nd, or just, well, theoretically the latest possible date, the 29th, and get a lot of feedback on those proposals. Do we need more than 5 weeks, 6 weeks to then sort of finalize for December confirmation, or does that feel appropriate? I mean, we know we don't want to have a December meeting that's going to be getting too close to the holiday, because we'll just lose a lot.
There's the week of Thanksgiving in November that just, I think, hits lots of people.
Right.
So it looks like the 3rd Thursday in December is the 17th. Do we think that's too close to the holidays? Because I do think giving ourselves an extra week would be great if people are comfortable the 17th instead of the 10th.
I mean, when we put the 2 dates out to people, did people respond to the choices? Did we get like a picking for the August date? I mean, should we just put both of those dates out as a choice? Like say, okay, people, how do you feel between 22 and 29 and 10 and 17, and kind of get a consensus?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay. That seems at this point like that would be reasonable, unless someone has another idea.
No, and I think if we do go with the earlier one in October, then we can kind of think through the December as well. So.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on. So work group updates. 2 of our groups met this week. So do we have staff or chairs from these groups who would like to give us a little quick briefing on how things are going? We're not obviously looking for the full update, just sort of operationally. So educators, I know we've got Kelly and Fran. I see Mike or Noel. So
I think either could make it.
Okay, so Kelly or Fran, when you want to just, I was there too, actually, so I could speak.
I think Matt was on for a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Everyone was there for the beginning.
Yes.
We did have a couple new faces at the table, which is nice to bring different perspectives. Educators involved in ARTC. I have to double check. But they did narrow down to really honing in on 2 recommendations. The Grow Your Own program and the school professional development model. So they have started brainstorming people to reach out to engage and ask questions of. After I meet with Nicole and Mike, or we, not just me. Nicole and Mike later today, there will be some homework sent out to the group to just really look at the list of stakeholders. Does anybody have a connection that where they can reach out and talk to them, get their feedback on each one of these? And the research team will continue to look at what's going on throughout the Delaware as we can, and throughout the nation on each one of these. So.
Nice. So yeah, the group really kind of dug into the process cycle and are really moving along into the stakeholder part, like we talked about, which is I was sort of doing 2 meetings at once, but what I was able to on seemed like things were happening, and we were kind of getting grounded again after all the chaos.
Yeah. I will say I still do worry a little bit moving forward with everything going on, knowing that we have educators and we have people with schools starting, but we are going to do our best to keep them on track and keep them going. So
Yeah. Great. All right. Anybody have any questions for the educators work group folks?
Fran, do you have anything to add?
No, just that we're working on the update for the full consortium right now.
Great.
Yep.
Cool. And so social determinants met last night. I don't know if the name is still the social determinants group. And to Is that Matt?
Yes.
All right, Matt, do you want to speak to it?
Yes. As far as I know, there has been no request to change the name.
Oh, cool.
I thought it was a good first meeting in terms of, everyone got to talk and on sort of a blank slate about what they would like to see happen generally with the schools. And I was only in one of the, what do you call them? Breakout rooms, chat rooms, whatever they're called. So I only got to hear firsthand, a third of the comments, but it seemed like a pretty good range from what was reported back. So I think the main challenge with that group is just going to be that there are a lot of very good ideas and a very limited period of time to put them in a sufficiently concrete form that we can try to execute on them, at the end of the year, which is sort of the goal. So I think time is the main challenge with that group.
Yeah, it seemed like everybody was there and engaged.
My group wanted more time. They go, Kelly, why are we being called back? We could keep going and going. Much energy around it, which was really exciting and cool to see.
Good. Yeah, very dynamic group. Cool. All right. So, and that group is meeting again? No, not meeting again before August.
I don't think they're meeting again before August, but I do want to talk to the co-chairs about, possibly having more frequent meetings, again, just because of the scope of what people were talking about and the limited period of time that we have.
Cool. All right, great. Thank you. And then our funding and, oh, sorry, go ahead. Nope, okay. And then our funding and governance group, I think we have Eugene and Namdi are both here, and Haley and folks are engaged there. Any particular news? I missed the tail end.
I mean, we're going to push forward with our August 6th meeting and trying to convene our working group and ensure send out a official invite to our CFOs and trying to begin the discussion with them regarding the Newcastle County tax pool and legislation regarding referendum reform. Those are two of our core items, and there are also some discussion regarding opportunity funding and CARES Act funding as well to try to just get districts' perspectives. But again, the overall sense of the working group is to make sure that we're moving forward and utilizing this work group in particular to work with the CFOs to help us bridge this relationship with our districts and using this as a way to help set the foundation for the overall redistricting and the funding work that will come later in conjunction with the redistricting.
Great. Okay. Any questions? All right. Okay. So research underway, and our sub-item is the scope of work that is sitting with Matt and I right now. We just got we slightly amended, well, budget added version. So my goal, of course, is to take a final look at that addendum so we can approve that. That's up to me and Matt to do.
And if you want to set up a time to chat, Tizzy, with Jason, Monday or Tuesday, we would gladly, just if you have any questions, but
sure.
It's very similar to last year with a few little tweaks from what we learned and including more DSU time. We're really excited.
Good. All right. So maybe we should go ahead and set a time, so that'll give us like a deadline.
Yes, knowing how long our respective universities can take to get things.
Yes. For sure. So let's see if we can find some little bit of time on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Anything else under research that anyone wants to highlight? We're a little after 11. And it's always fun when we do this in 30 minutes. Cool. All right. So I know, I'm not sure we have any public. I see Dr. Blackston, but you're not like public, but part of the team. So, all right. I don't know that we have any, unless anyone just wants to speak freely right now. I don't know that we need to do any public comment if I'm wrong, or have anyone signed up for public comment and present for it. Oh, wait.
Kyle Shepard would like to talk.
Sorry, I overlooked you. I didn't see you there. All right, cool. So we'll start with Kyle, and if anyone else is here who would like to make a public comment, just, do the hand raise or the comment in the box thing. Kyle, you have your minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll try to be relatively quickly. So I've attended some of the Reading Consortium meetings over time, back in before time when we were in person as well. So I do some work with the Urban League. I've also done some work with the Wilmington Community Advisory Council, which I think has a chair that sits on the Reading Consortium. The only thing I wanted to make comment was it's pretty much an agreement with a suggestion for the agenda item on equity and anti-racism. Obviously, that time frame will be flexible depending upon how these meetings typically go. The only suggestion I'll kind of run down is that, for an example, for suggestion, is to send a primer or expectations for that agenda item in advance. I was thinking like at least, like 7 to 10 days in advance. So if you have that primer expectation set in advance, the primer essentially could be how has inequity, and racism impacted each tenet of each work group. So funding, social determinants, educators, right? Like have that as an assignment for each work group to tackle. And then if the meeting is on the 13th, those responses could be at least like 5 days in advance. So like that Monday beforehand, where essentially those responses would inform the dialogue to be had on that Friday, right? So then during the actual session, you've already done a lot of the work. You've already done the feedback. We've already discussed the issue at hand. And then essentially the presenter, whether Monique or whoever it may be, they only would need to review the primer and the agenda item expectations of what's already been discussed and sent out. And then you could allow for like 5 minutes of what we discussed, like Jam, something, Kahoot, whatever the technology tool is, or a poll. I think there's Mentimeter, right, or different things like that. So you could use the icebreaker of that technology to utilize the feedback on what people already sent in advance, right? What people have already discussed as it relates to how inequity and racism impacts that work group. Coming out of that 5-minute activity, then you go into like 10 minutes of solution-oriented, so like, what does this mean, right? What's the next step based on these specific, so it's not some lofty idea of equity and anti-racism, but something specific and drilled down as it relates to, again, what each work group would do as it relates to funding, social determinants, educators and things like that, and then implications and takeaway. So that's the only comment. I think I've heard a lot of that on the call. This is just suggestions and agreement, as we all know, just to help with efficiency during the constrained times that we all have. That's all.
Thank you for that. It's really helpful and insightful. All right, awesome. All right, so I don't see anyone else indicating the desire to comment. So unless anyone else has anything they would like to speak, I think we're good for today. Thank you, everyone. I do feel like our momentum is building. So, and we're hitting all the points we need to. So let's keep hanging in there and, try to enjoy the weekend safely.
You too.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye.